Hello, and welcome to the Dad of All Trades podcast. I'm the host of the podcast, Isaac. This is the first episode of this podcast, so probably will be a little clunky and a little all over the place. So please bear with me in that process. I started this podcast after a few years of kind of thinking about doing it and sort of toying with the idea. And then my wonderful and awesome wife bought me a really great microphone so that I could get started, which I guess sort of gave me the push I needed to get started. And the reason I felt like I needed to start a podcast is because I kind of realized that I needed some way of, therapy, kind of put my thoughts out there and, you know, just kind of just bringing up things that are on my mind. I guess some people do that by maybe journaling, like my wife does, or writing in some way. But I always felt like talking through what's on my mind helps me to find solutions. Um, and it gives me a way of expanding my mind since it seems like my brain runs a million times a minute, pretty much all the time. So just constantly thinking and usually overthinking every aspect of my life, from something as simple as brushing my teeth every day to even more complicated topics like caring for aging parents or something like that. So I wrote a script for this intro, which isn't really something I want to do in the future, but the reason I did that is because I was having some anxiety on like creating the first episode, and I thought that having a script might alleviate some of that. It did, I guess. I mean, I'm here recording it now, so yeah. Um, the plan for the podcast is to just basically discuss the topics that are on my mind and topics that I want to expand on. And I guess I'll talk a little bit about myself. I'm Palestinian American. I was born and raised in southern Indiana. And both my parents were born and raised in Jordan, but their families came from Palestine, a little village called Ain Karim, or Ain Karim in Arabic, which is known for being the birthplace of John the Baptist. Uh, that's what it's well known for in the Western world, anyway. So I grew up in Indiana, and I moved to Alabama after flunking out of my second year of university, where I was actually going to school for mechanical engineering, because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I mean, I went through all my schooling thinking that I wanted to be a mechanical engineer because I wanted to work on cars. That was my basically favorite thing to. I used to draw cars. I used to trace them. I used to have posters, and I collect images of just all different types of cars. But so being a mechanical engineer, I guess, made me think that I could get into sort of the industrial and the industrial design of automobiles and work for like a car manufacturer, which was kind of naive of me at the time, because after taking some mechanical engineering courses and kind of learning more about different fields of engineering, I kind of found that mechanical wasn't really what I wanted to do. And so as a result of that, I didn't pay much attention in school, and I wanted to kind of pursue other things that interested me, like fitness or just anything that I wanted, that I was interested in, hobbies that I wanted to maybe start a business in or something like that. So the school that I was going to, USI, University of Southern Indiana, they put me on probation, and kind of basically kicked me out for a semester, and they just to forced me to rethink things and take some time off before I came back. I could have appealed the probation, but I honestly kind of felt like I needed a fresh start, or like a new environment to kind of start over. And I'm sure a lot of you have felt like that before in your lives, if anybody's even listening to this. So basically I moved to Alabama, to Birmingham, to help my dad after he retired. My dad worked for a power plant, in the power industry for like 30 years. And after he retired, he decided to open or start a tutoring center for kids in Alabama. Alabama specifically, partly because my brother lived there, but also because the school system in Alabama is not very good, the public school system. So he wanted to kind of start a business that could also help people out, help some kids out. So I kind of came and helped him start the business, and that's kind of where I started to learn more about life and realize what I wanted to do. I got my in that time I worked a bunch of odd jobs, and in the process of working those jobs, I found what I really wanted to do, which was start a business. And so my favorite things to do were basically computers, lifting weights, powerlifting, bodybuilding, that kind of stuff, and cars. So I got my personal training certification during the time where I was waiting to go back to school. Because when you switch from state to state, you've got to take a year off to kind of get in-state tuition. I mean, you could start right away, but then you'd be paying out of state double the amount of tuition, which, I was paying tuition out of pocket, so I couldn't afford to pay the out-of-state tuition. So after that year, during that year, I got into personal training, and I also wanted to start a business where I help people with their computers, build computers, repair, fix viruses, whatever, upgrades. Because I was working at Staples at the time in the tech department or tech center of Staples in Birmingham, and kind of realized man, the company's charging they're charging the customer $100 for just this simple virus scan. I could make my own virus scan tool, and I could pocket that money. So I started doing work on the side for different businesses, some hotels, and also for individuals. But my main customer base was elderly customers who needed to set up a printer or just basic stuff. So that's kind of where I started, and I didn't even at that time I didn't even really know about podcasts. And just to kind of circle back to the whole podcast thing, but at the time, Joe Rogan's podcast was out there, but it wasn't. I didn't really listen to it. It wasn't on my radar at all. And so basically, after that time of exploring different jobs and businesses, at that time I had the personal training business and then also the tech repair business. And between those two things, plus my regular day jobs, and with school, I was very busy. I did not have much time for really anything. I was barely home. I was leaving my parents' house at, 5, 6 in the morning to go train people, and then I may come home to take a nap for an hour if I'm lucky, but for the most part I was out of the house all day, not home till 10, 11 o'clock after my night classes were over. So when I went back to school, for an associate's degree in kind of like an engineering or electrical engineering technology. It was kind of more of a mechatronics, because I didn't even know what mechatronics was at the time. It wasn't really popular like it is now. But I took a lot of PLC classes and motor classes, discrete circuits, stuff like that. So that's the stuff that I was really interested in when I was a kid. Was I was taking apart remote control cars and trying to build remote control helicopters, and that's what I really like to do in my free time, was just hobbies in electronics, but specifically with cars and planes and boats and stuff. That was if I could just build those every day, I'd be happy. So my dad was the one who kind of, he told me that, he was like, you like electrical, just do electrical. This was before I went back for my associates. So that's what I did. He was right. I did my associates for electrical with the intention to finish my bachelor's later. And so I got my associate's degree, and basically started. I was working at the before I graduated my associate's degree. I started working for a company out of Birmingham that does control panels for like different industries, wastewater treatment facilities, other government facilities, a lot of municipalities and stuff like that, where they need control panels to control motors and conveyors and float switches and stuff like that, pumps, like all these different control panels. I started off in the panel shop, and they gave me a test, like a wiring test, like a troubleshooting wiring test before I could join. And that's when I knew like these guys were serious, and I passed that test really well. So they hired me to basically wire up panels. So that's what I did for, I don't know, probably a couple of years. I did that, and then my last year of school, they bumped me up to do like CAD design. Computer aided design is what CAD stands for. To basically take the engineer's drawings, and that were sometimes handwritten or whatever it is, or a PDF, and convert it to like an actual AutoCAD drawing, which could then be printed off and sent to the panel shop. But I always knew like I wanted to do more than just do the CAD or do the panel shop. So during the time I was doing the CAD work, I would take on weekend work to actually build the panels when there was overtime available. So almost any time there was an opportunity to have overtime, I would take it. And that was really cool because it kind of allowed me to step away a little bit from all these other, like the training and the other jobs that I had on the side, and focus on this one thing. It kind of taught me to sometimes you need to specialize, and that's kind of the reason this podcast is called Dad of All Trades, is because I always felt like I always felt like I had to do a million different things all at once. But the reality is that it's very difficult to continue to keep that pace up when you're doing so many different things at once, right? So during that time, it taught me that sometimes you need to specialize. So so during the time I was working there, I could kind of see the writing on the wall that there wasn't really any opportunity for me to move up to engineering unless I went back to school, and that company's they're not going to pay for my school. So paying for a bachelor's out of pocket was, I mean, at the time, like impossible, because I was just making a small hourly wage. I mean, this was back, I don't know, between 2012 and 2014, 15. So salaries were not nearly as high as they are now, or hourly wages at that time, because I was just making an hourly wage. Wasn't salary yet. So then the company out of Atlanta it was growing. So they were growing so fast. They just needed anybody with any expertise in wiring. And this company does even cooler stuff than I could even imagine. And I jumped on the opportunity to interview with them. So I drove out there, interviewed with them, and they were actually interviewing for a job to basically travel all over the country and go in the field and check out control panels and kind of see the status of them, check the wiring, troubleshoot them, things like that. So that's what they originally hired me to do. But pretty quickly after the first project I worked on, which was a really big building for UPS, they kind of saw that I could handle all the other like the more advanced items, like PLC programming. I'm trying to figure out how in depth to get here, because I don't want to bore everybody who doesn't care about engineering stuff with engineering stuff. You know what I mean? Like if I have to create another podcast for engineering stuff, I guess I'll. If I ever get feedback, if anybody's even listening to this, if I get feedback and some people are like, "Oh, I want to hear more about like automation material handling and all that kind of stuff, then I'll make another podcast for that. But this is more about day to day dealing with stress, dealing with family, dealing with how to manage grief and stress, and how to be a family man and at the same time keep up your hobbies and avoid burnout. That's kind of what I want to go over in this podcast anyway. So so I kind of started off from that job as a technician, and after the first year and a half or so, I became like a project engineer, where I just work on different projects, anything that could possibly be needed for in that project, whether it's being in the field with tools and fixing stuff, conveyor or wiring or whatever, or VFDs or motors, to doing the design, doing the programming, and kind of started learning more and more about programming. Had to learn very, very quickly at that time, because the company was just growing so fast. And when I joined, the company was like 35. We were 35 employees, and then my company got bought out by another larger company, and now, there's over 2,000 employees in North America alone. So pretty significant growth, I guess you could say. So that's kind of my personal backstory as far as careers and jobs and things like that. So, but aside from that, my hobbies, which, my hobby, I always have the same hobbies pretty much. Sometimes I add a few here and there, but for the most part, the ones that kind of have stuck around are weightlifting, mountain biking, and outdoors like hiking or fishing. I love doing that. And what's another one? Cars, obviously. I have a Mark V VW GTI that I've had for several years. And it's got like 130,000 miles, and it's got a stage 2 tune and all the stuff you can do to the stock turbo on it. I also had a motorcycle. I got into motorcycling a few years ago, and I bought a Ninja 400 in 2018. I bought it new, and I really enjoyed motorcycling, but having two kids, and when I started working from home because of COVID, I wasn't riding much, because most of the time when I would ride would be, to work and back. And I just never took the time to kind of ride, like just leave in the morning on a Sunday and go for a ride or something. I should have done more of that, but ended up selling the bike because I just wasn't doing it as much, partly because of the danger of it, I guess, because of the kids and, family and stuff. I didn't want to, could never forgive myself if something happened. So I ended up selling it, which I'm glad I did, because that allowed me to focus on other things. In the future, I may get another bike, maybe. It's definitely something that interests me because I enjoyed it. But in the future, I may get a bike just to take to the track, rather than ride it around the crazy Atlanta highways we have here. So that's kind of my hobbies. I still kind of tinker with electronics when I need to, or when I have an opportunity. But doing those hobbies, I felt like I like doing that stuff with my daughter. She's 4, and she likes that stuff. So I got her a little, electronic snap together circuit kit, and we kind of do that together, and it's like a fun daddy-daughter time that we have. So that's really cool, and I hope that that she'll like to do that in the future with me as well. So so that's kind of the backstory, brief backstory, I guess, from the time I started college until, not necessarily till now, because so much has happened since I got since I started the career and the job that I'm in now. I met my amazing wife. I've had 2 children, and I want a big part of this podcast to be about fathering and about, family life and things like that, things along those lines. And so, I had my daughter first, and she's about 4.5. My son is just a little over a year old, and yeah, it's been like a really amazing and wonderful journey. Um, part of my life that I never imagined could be so incredible. I mean, it really is life changing for a man, and really for anybody to have kids and to get married and have a partner in life and things like that. So in the next episode, I want to get into more of the family details and things along those lines. So looking forward to that next recording. But in the meantime, this episode's already 20 minutes long, so it's just the intro. But I'm feeling very comfortable, and I hope that whoever's listening out there will stick with me. So thank you for listening, and talk to you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.